There's a 40-time zoom on that, by the way, so you can get right in my ears if you really want to. Heavy metal is the topic I'm putting next. I think I might have already said the band I'm going to associate with it. We already came up with some guesses last week for the acid rock category. Tom? Who you got? Metallica. Obviously, with that name, they're definitely going to represent heavy metal, I think, as much as any. Anybody else have a favorite heavy metal band? What? You hate? Tom? It's not even one I've heard of. Raise your hand if you've heard of Pantera. Okay. No, I'll look it up. What else? Somebody else had something?
Slipknot.
Slipknot? That's actually the name of a band?
Yeah.
Haven't heard of that one either?
They're not good.
They're creepy heavy metal.
They're not good. No, they're like...
You said creepy though, right? Okay.
They were like bondage outfits.
Haven't heard of them. So I guess maybe this would be lighter heavy metal, the one I'm going to put, and the one you'll associate.
That's Zeppelin, okay. Got all about it.
For your purposes, in terms of a final exam, that's the one you need to have. And I'm going to guess none of you can come up, without Googling, none of you will come up with their #1 song of all time. Don't try yet. Let me tell you the Tampa story. It has nothing to do with me, but it's amazing how much interesting stuff goes on in Tampa, Florida. Or Florida in general. And maybe I've referenced this before. I think I probably have. Whether it's the climate that attracts more than just senior citizens, maybe just crazy people love to live here. But if you watch the Jerry Springer Show or Maury, I'd say 90% of the guests are certainly from Florida. And when you listen to the news, whenever they close the news with kind of like the goofy story, national news, it's always in Florida. There's a city in Florida. And when the Buccaneers were new, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 1976 I think they started, they were famous for losing every game the first year, and the first 10, there were 12 games a year in those days, not 16 like there is now. They lost 12 the first year, and then the next year they lost the first 10. And games are typically on Sunday, occasionally Monday Night Football. And the Tonight Show, every Monday night, Johnny Carson would come on in his monologue in the Tonight Show and make fun of Tampa. Of course, he called the city Tampa Bay, because that's what the country thinks we are, sort of because of Green Bay. It sounds a lot like that, and the reason we're called Tampa Bay is because they didn't want to offend the 3 keystone cities, Clearwater, St. Pete, and Tampa. So they named it a generic name so the Buccaneers would be more regional and they wouldn't be owned by Tampa. But the country thinks, oh, I'm going to go down to Tampa Bay. Well, that means they should have a boat if they're going to do that, because that's what they need. But he talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost again, and they make fun of us. And then somewhere right around then, I think it might have been 77, not during the season, the city of Tampa, some promoter rented out the old Tampa Stadium for a Led Zeppelin concert. And this was going to be huge for this city. And it actually started the talk about building an amphitheater. 40 years-ish before it was actually built. Not Ray J, the old Tampa Stadium. It's just a parking lot now. It was all cement. When it first was built, they didn't have a team, just like with the Rays. They built the stadium and then hoped they could draw a team here. And it was aluminum bleachers, just the seat part. There were no seat backs or anything like that. And the ends weren't filled in. It wasn't a complete oval. It was just 2 sidelines. And then they got the Bucks and they filled that in, and it actually looked pretty good, but it was kind of in the shape of a hat. If you turn it upside down, its nickname was a sombrero. Well, I guess it was maybe summertime that this concert was booked, maybe July, right before the exhibition season started. And people got there and tailgated, and then they let them in like 3 hours early, and there's 70,000 people, every imaginable seat and every space on the grass, real grass. And then about an hour and a half before the concert started, the storms came. And it was impossible to have this concert. So city officials had to come out and announce that the concert was canceled.
Yeah.
And this was big dollars. I'm sure people paid $30, which would be like $180 in today's market. And they'd been there all day, and probably a lot of them had driven from everywhere. and maybe had even during the tailgating process taken some things that maybe caused them not to think as clearly as they would under normal circumstances. And they literally destroyed Tampa Stadium. They went any place they could. There was no plumbing left in any of the bathrooms. However they could do it, they pulled all the toilets out. They pulled all the sinks out. When the rain finally stopped, they lit all the grass on fire. They must have had gasoline or kerosene or, I don't know, maybe something people drink. Is it alcohol, I think they say? Whiskey? I don't know. They might have used that, but the grass was gone. It was such a disaster that the city council banned outdoor concerts in Tampa for like 20 years, until the amphitheater almost came. Actually, where the Yankees now have spring training, that's where they allowed the first outdoor concert. The Moody Blues played there first. And so Monday night, or the next night, Carson could. That was just a big thing, Tampa Bay, the joke of the United States. The other thing that comes to my mind when I talk about Tampa Bay being the compromised name, obviously I've mentioned the Florida Orchestra a lot, and that was one of your options to go to get a little bit of credit. And that's the orchestra I played in professionally and have conducted now many, many times professionally. They were, I think, in their 40th-ish year or 45th year now. They originally were the Gulf Coast Symphony, and as a professional orchestra. And I just thought this was kind of a funny story, and so typical of craziness and possessiveness that people can have. They were, before the Gulf Coast Symphony started in the 60s, they were the St. Pete Symphony and the Tampa Philharmonic. And they were both just a step above the Northport Symphony. And it was time to merge the two and form the Gulf Coast Symphony and hire some professionals and start raising money and get a conductor and do some serious stuff. But the St. Pete Symphony said, their board said, well, we're not coming to Tampa to sign these partnership papers, and the Tampa Philharmonic said, well, we're not driving to St. Pete. Neither one wanted to do it on the other's turf. So they got, I can't even think of what it's called, but surveyists, to figure out exactly in the bay, in the actual Tampa Bay, where the Tampa city limits stop and where the St. Pete city limits start. And they put a barge out there and they anchored it so half of the barge was in St. Pete water and half of the barge was in Tampa water. And they put a table right over the middle, and they all signed the partnership agreements over both counties, or both cities, well, counties too. And I just thought, because they don't hide from that story, and it's almost like, this is so neat, so proud of that, and it's, to me, quite the opposite. So, with all those anecdotes being said, let's name now Led Zeppelin songs. Tom! Anybody?
Stairway to Heaven.
Stairway to Heaven is what everybody says first. And it's by far the one I know the best. Might be the only one I truly know outside of this class.
Black Dog?
I don't even know if that's one.
Yeah.
We're going to use Stairway to Heaven as the piece we associate. Did somebody say they knew Black Dog?
Yeah.
That is the song. I'm going to first play, and I'm not writing this one down, but I'm going to first play by far their #1 hit. And I've been doing this for, I think, 4 semesters. No one ever recognizes it. And then when I say the name, I think one student's gone, maybe. But look anywhere once this is said and done. And you'll see, people are all saying that. Give me 1 second, find. Yeah. It's the longest introduction. 3 minutes of drums first. You know? For the drums, we'll play 7. genre. They're known for couldn't get on the radio.
Keeps on raining, maybe it's gonna rain. If it keeps on raining, maybe it's going to rain.
It's so weird that that's their number one, and I found that. You know, I have lots of different ages too. Reginald, nothing?
Nothing.
When the Levee Breaks.
Wow.
You heard it? Of it? Heard the name? Okay. Well, here's the one everybody seems to say, and I tend to agree with. And it's the one I wrote down, so it'll just take a second to get the system back up and running. And this is longer too. I mean, they had a hard time. They had to cut this down to 4 minutes to get on the radio, but I think it's up to 16 in concert.
67 minutes.
Beautiful guitar.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes, sir.
Have you ever heard of reverse editing?
Reverse editing as a name of a band or a way to reverse edit music or something?
Yeah, it's where you play the CD backwards.
And you
or
hear The
track
Devil
it.
Wants You, or
You play that song and it's crazy. There are some serious messages there.
He just said when the levee broke. I was thinking about New Orleans when he said a levee broke. Did the levee break?
right?
at that
Oh,
time?
absolutely.
Did the levee break at that time or something?
And that other song was American Pie. Took my Chevy to the levee, but the
Right.
levee was dry. I got Stairway to Heaven backwards. Let's see what we got. The truth about Stairway to Heaven backwards.
Wow.
Yeah, what's them songs?
You may be disappointed.
I won't be.
Liz, meet Brad.
Hold on.
6 foot handsome.
Gosh, you're even prettier than your picture.
Oh, Brad.
Oh, Liz. Oh, yeah, I won't.
Okay, book the date.
Damn right I'm gonna book a date.
Zeus, the smart way to date.
I don't know what this is, so be ready.
Oh, that. Same thing.
This will make it all clear. That's really his name backwards.
Wow.
If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. It's just a sprinkling for the May Queen. Yes, there are 2 paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. It's my station. I'm in the power, and if we slap, we start at say. You PM the off kneeling and sits again. When my leg was pushed behind it was up was that thing.
Well, it's food for thought. Let's
There's
just say
like a
that.
lot of them though.
Yeah, I know, and that's what YouTube's for.
Got a bunch of crazy stuff.
Knock yourselves out on YouTube. Look at stuff like that. Something that is also now you open the door, so let's go there. I might look for it over the break. People that try to sing the songs, normal songs backwards, like the national anthem. They figure out how it would literally sound backwards, and they learn it backwards, both the notes and the pronunciation, so that when the backwards is played backwards, it'll sound to us forwards. And it's an unbelievable trick to do, and it's not a trick. I mean, they're really doing it. They're learning and going out of their way to learn the music backwards and how to pronounce it and sing everything. So I'll try to find one of those because it is kind of interesting. But there's certainly, I mean, probably 100 or more things like that that I've heard. You know, and that's interesting that we found it. So, kind of cool, kind of cool. All right, so that's the one you just need to know for heavy metal, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. Now this next band isn't probably the most famous band out there, but the instrument they introduced is really famous. Let me mute the screen. Iron Butterfly. Anybody know them?
I mean,
Reggie, yes?
no, sir.
Joshua? Joe?
I remember.
Yep. Wow, Tom? Huh. They introduced, I'm going to say, introed the electronic organ. Into rock music. They're a British band. The song that we're going to associate with them is kind of mumbo jumbo. Inagata Davida. Anybody remember that? We played that in high school pep band in the stands at football games. But the electronic organ is a huge, and I'm probably spelling Davida wrong according to this, but it doesn't much matter. If you ever see for the last 30 years, the David Letterman show, that's like Paul Schaefer's go-to instrument, like the Hammond B3, I want to say, something like that is the sound. But let's listen to Iron Butterfly. See if you remember it more. This is 17 minutes long too, by the way, this song. We will not listen to that. Oops. Come on. Come on. You gotta listen from the beginning, because that lick is one of the most famous, iconic licks. Da 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 da. It's using so much stuff. Here's the organ. Church up in here. Right there, that bass line.
Don't you know that I'm loved? I remember. And I've got all the freedom, baby. Don't you know that I'm
Say again?
I remember
It's
this.
in an episode of The Simpsons, but it's not the same words.
What's The Simpsons?
You don't know what The Simpsons are?
Kidding. Wouldn't surprise you though. No,
I ain't never watched
I've never seen
Sounds so
Star Trek. I've never seen 1 second of Star Trek.
What?
Okay, good. Good.
No trackies in there?
There's some in here, but I've never seen 1 second of it.
I ain't never.
All right, something funny about this song. This is a band that didn't get famous, and obviously not too famous, ever, but struggled for 10, 15 years singing in England. And Tom, as you probably know, young bands, if somebody says, hey, you want to play a gig, you don't necessarily, when you're starting out, say, what's the money? It's, yeah, where do we go and when is it? Show up, you know. And if they throw you, you know, 3 hamburgers, that's considered a payday. And if they say, unlimited pitchers of beer, that could be something really good for certain types of musicians.
Right.
And these guys would play these outdoor tent festivals in England and other European countries. And, you know, 5 hours, you'd play everything, you just try to build up your fans. And this one song got to be so famous. But when they'd introduce it, they'd be so drunk, they couldn't even say the name right, and they couldn't sing the words right. It is not In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida when they wrote it. That's what it is now. The song actually was In the Garden of Eden. And the guy coming, go play, and people say, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida! And they had to change the lyrics to suit what the audience thought it was, which we often get the lyrics wrong. But in this case, they went with it and totally changed the song. So it's one of those trivia things. Originally, in the garden, or a garden, but it's close enough. There will only be one Garden of Eden question on your final exam. And it will not have to do with an apple or a snake. Anybody know when the original Woodstock was?
69?
Look at you. Our Led Zeppelin expert now. Woodstock.
I'm not even Led Zeppelin.
Anybody go to Woodstock?